The comeback is one of the most entertaining storylines that we have in any form of entertainment. And when looking at music specifically, to have that narrative form, it takes a couple of things. There has to be certain odds to overcome for an artist, and oftentimes that happens when they've been away for some time and they're returning with a new body of work. In other cases, it's when an artist got backlash from a previous release and is now trying to get an album that goes into the favor of the community for something that they could enjoy. So let's go through some rappers and answer the question, will they make a comeback in 2022, starting off with Chance the Rapper?
Yes, I do think he will make a comeback, and apparently he is dropping new music in the month of March 2022 at the time of this recording. And listen, I'm not going to lie to you, The Big Day was a massive disappointment, especially after what was released prior to that album. And previously. I think that when you're looking at that album, it was disappointing for the whole community. And I think that even when he had tried to get on Twitter and defend it, there wasn't much to defend. I mean, there was really no quality within that album. And I think that that's why he has a comeback on his hands. Because based on the music that I had also gotten last year, I mean, there was a YouTube single that I believe was released in May of 2021, if I'm not mistaken.
It was March of 2021. It was called The Heart and the Tongue.
March of 2021. That was incredible. That showed me like, yo, he's back to writing, and it's fantastic writing at that. And I want that soulful Chance. I want to feel as if there's, a certain presence within his album. So, in your opinion, why do you think he's going to make a comeback? And if he can't make a comeback, what do you think Chance goes from here?
I think he could make a comeback. I mean, I don't think he'll regain the whole fan base that kind of ended up being divided after The Big Day dropped. I feel like a lot of people won't want to give him another opportunity to prove himself because there's still that recency bias, and a project like The Big Day that ended up turning Chance into a meme for a long time. I think that it's hard to kind of gear away from that image that people set in stone for him. But with a new album coming, I still think that there's going to be a lot of people eager to listen to it. I mean, speaking of The Heart and the Tongue, song has millions of views on YouTube. It's one of Chance's best songs in years. So I feel like there's a lot of potential for Chance the Rapper to make a comeback, and it just ends up being a situation of what's going to drive him, because I did not get that same hunger on The Big Day that I got on Acid Rap or on 10 Day. Like, I want Chance the Rapper to really get back into this bag where he's making uplifting music and is making music with a message that doesn't feel forced, I would say.
And I agree with you. And I think that that's completely understandable for a situation, because sometimes an artist will, sort of, I would say, slow down on their craft and sort of put out something that's not up to par with their previous albums. But in the case of The Big Day, it was really a big flop. And I don't like the people that are going to look at Chance's new music and have that bias just because they sort of want to meme him. I think that people should sit down and actually listen to a record and then, have their judgments from there. But listen, guys, do you think Chance the Rapper will have a comeback in 2022?
Did you hear the snippet that he dropped, by the way?
Yes, I did.
Did you like it?
Yeah, it was fucking fantastic.
Him and Vic Mensa back together. I like that.
That's going to be awesome to see. But let's go on to another person that's due for a comeback, and that is Eminem, because Music to Be Murdered By was received in a weird way because it's polarizing. You have your Eminem fans that absolutely adore it. I've seen some Eminem pages put this at the top of their discography ranking for Marshall's catalog. And then there's people like me that can't gravitate towards this certain project whatsoever. And that's not to say that I haven't liked a new Eminem record in a long time. Go back to 2018, I really enjoyed Kamikaze. I think that it was a really solid record. So where do you think Eminem lies right now with his career, especially in 2022, just at the Super Bowl performance? And how do you think he approaches this new album? Because I don't know where he goes from here, man. He's released so much material.
I just feel like it's weird with Eminem to even put him in this conversation because he's Eminem. He's one of the most successful artists of all time. But I think we're talking more of a comeback in terms of dropping another project of quality because, in my opinion, I mean, since Revival, he really hasn't been at his artistic peak. I mean, Kamikaze was cool, but the only reason why it was cool is because he was actually passionate about something. Like, he was actually inspired by all the hate that he had gotten from the previous album, and that was the first time in a long time where you're like, oh, fuck, like, he actually has something new to say, even though it's just, responding to criticism. And what's interesting is that, yes, Music to Be Murdered By had its shining moments, but I just thought that it was kind of, not fair to the fans that he kind of formed it as this concept album that was going to be Alfred Hitchcock inspired and have this whole serial killer type of motive going throughout it. And then what ends up happening is you get songs like These Kind of Nights or Stepdad, And, you know, you have Ed Sheeran on the song, and you have other songs where, like on In Too Deep, where Eminem is singing, and you're thinking to yourself, I don't even think Eminem, you know, likes this music. And that's kind of what I've been picking up on since 2018's Kamikaze, is the fact that I think Eminem has decided to troll the fans and maybe put out music that he's not even too happy with,
I
man.
don't think he's trolling his
I
fans.
think so.
Come
Go
on.
and listen to a song like In Too Deep. Go listen to, song like The Ringer, where he's literally rapping like the mumble rappers that he's making fun of, and the music is literally becoming a troll because Eminem's reached a point, you know, where he just doesn't give a fuck anymore, and he's really, you know, not being driven by anything. And I also feel like what's interesting about Eminem is that he always finds new ways to discuss, you know, subjects that he's already rapped about, but is it maybe a case that he's ran out of new material? And
I don't know, man. Listen, I'm not sure, dude. This is a weird situation. Do I think he's trolling the fans? Absolutely fucking not. You can't,
I think so.
You can't troll the fan base. That would be extremely harsh, and I do not condone that whatsoever. And as an Eminem fan, I would still feel extremely disrespected by, you know, those types of records. I think it's just him, you know, putting out whatever he wants. I think that at a certain point in your career, dude, like you've done so much that you're just gonna have to release music to be able to keep like
you don't need to though. There's a legacy to withhold at the end of the day.
But dude, like he doesn't give a fuck because after Revival, like what everyone backlashed him to the point where like they completely discredited the rest of his catalog. Like as an Eminem fan, I don't fuck with the newer portion of his catalog, but going back to those classics, that is some of the best material that has ever touched the music industry. So for me to go into this and just be like, oh, okay, you know, I'll get whatever. No, I can't do that as a fan.
Well, then I would rather not get any music if Eminem is going to drop shit that's subpar and that's not inspired.
I get that.
He is yet to challenge himself. What Eminem needs to do is wave goodbye to all the pop features, lock in with one producer, and start making music that has good songwriting. And what's interesting is that even if you want to argue Eminem's rapped about it all, he's gone through this subject, he's gone through this political conversation and whatever else, okay, but keep in mind that Eminem is a master at creating these fictional stories within music where he doesn't even have to rely on his own personal experiences. So to me, there's no real excuse. I think Eminem needs to push his limits. I think that he's one of the greatest of all time, and he needs to start putting out music that will be, you know, respectful to his own legacy.
Listen, because this is the thing too, is that that's what you want, but he releases
I think
music.
The fans want that.
He releases music to be murdered by, bro. This is one of the most commercially successful albums of the whole year, and it's because his fan base is lining up at that fucking door, and they want their package. They want to be able to go listen to that. It could be horrible. Like it could be a song.
There's still that demand for sure.
There's still that demand,
but a lot of fans are not content with it at the end of the day.
He doesn't give a fuck.
Demand and quality are two different things, man.
I mean, go back to you know, still don't give a fuck. Like he'll never care about what people think about it.
But that was a good song. That's the difference.
I know. I mean, we have the vinyl in back, but for fuck's sakes, like you kind of have to just let the guy do what he wants at this point. Like I'm kind of all worried about an Eminem record because I have so much of his material, but
he needs to lock in with The Alchemist, bro. We've been saying this.
I know. That's what I want, but I don't know if it's what the other 250,000 people want. But let's go on to A$AP Rocky because this is a much more positive comeback because Testing is finally getting its respect, I feel, as if in the community. A lot of people are starting to gravitate towards it now. It's an album that has aged super well within my rotation, but when it first dropped, I feel as if there was a polarizing feeling to it, and not a lot of people were fucking with it because they were used to certain aesthetics that were present on Live Love A$AP, or let's say At Long Last A$AP, and they didn't receive that on this new record because it was completely different than what I'd previously released. So where do you think it goes from here? Because this album has been rumored for such a long time. He's only released a handful of songs within that time span from Testing all the way to now. So where do you think he goes with this new album? And do you think the whole thing of him having a child, by the way, congratulations to A$AP Rocky, is going to slow down this album?
I mean, maybe. At the end of the day, I do see him extending this to 2023 because he's having a child. But what's interesting is that in 2021, back in May, he did this GQ interview and he said, All Smiles is 90% done. And he even gave us a lot of information saying that it's going to be a ghetto love tale, saying that he's been working with Morrissey of the Smiths as well as Rihanna. So it seemed like the whole project was just about to be finished and released. And then nothing ended up coming out. And what's interesting about Rocky is that every time he puts out an album, it's always an adventure. I feel like I'm always looking to see how he's going to be flexing within the record, how he's going to be altering his vocals, and, delving deeper into his psychedelic psyche, I would say. And with Rocky now coming into this new generation of, the sound of hip hop and this new wave, it's interesting because he's always been able to adapt to new climates. He's very experimental as an artist. And with this new wave of rap instrumentally kind of going towards, let's say, hyperpop or these glitchy sounds or this electronic influence, I feel like Rocky could adapt to that and maybe gain a new fan base from people that aren't familiar with how psychedelic his sound was prior to the 2020s. So it'll be a very cool moment. And I just think that, his stature within pop culture has gone up, so I do see this being more successful than Testing, which only sold 75,000 copies first week. So I think we'll have a comeback commercially, and I think the quality of the music is going to be fantastic because Rocky's never stumbled. He's never tripped. He's never had a mishap. Rocky has one of the most consistent discographies to me of the 2010s. So to me, there's no way that he doesn't have this, glorious return to the music game, and I'm just excited to see when it actually ends up coming.
He's going to be making his comeback. Absolutely.
For sure.
Everyone has to watch out for A$AP Rocky because I think it's an album that's being slept on right now, honestly. Like, as far as, what's being anticipated, and I see a lot of people talking about New Pusha. I see a lot of people talking about this K-Dot album. A$AP Rocky will make a major comeback. And I think that the fact that a lot of people are starting to understand Testing now, the community's getting warmed up to it, and now it's kind of a fan favorite within the discography, I could see it happening. But let's go on to Roddy Ricch because this is a very interesting situation. We touched upon this on our previous video that we dropped last week. Are we being too harsh with the artist? And I think that this was the case with Roddy Ricch. And we were talking about how he got immense backlash after dropping Live Life Fast. And you guys know how we feel about the album. We did not enjoy it at all. But it got to the point where people were personally attacking him. So with that being said, with that context, I feel as if it is extremely fitting for him to come back with Feed the Streets 3 and deliver a beautiful project for 2022. So where do you think this goes? Do you think he goes for it and he makes a full-blown comeback? Or do you think he takes some time off and just maybe, I'd say, gauges where he's at within his career at the moment?
Well, I mean, what's interesting is that just a couple of weeks after Live Life Fast dropped, he literally tweeted, he's like, watch out, 2022, I'm dropping Feed the Streets 3. So if I feel like all of this backlash is just driving him and pushing him to get more creative and maybe put out a better record because he wants to make up for the last one. So I like the fact that he's not waiting. I feel like too many artists make this mistake when, they put out a flop of an album where they say, fuck it, let me just chill out, give it a couple of years and then come back, and then they can never reach those heights again. But I feel like he's ahead of the curve. I feel like he wants to, introduce them to a new sound and give them the quality they've been waiting for. So I like the fact that he's coming back so soon. And I also feel like when you look at mainstream rappers that are 25 years old and under, Roddy Ricch is one of the only artists that has a debut album as strong as Please Excuse Me for Being Antisocial, that has the amount of hits and multi-platinum records that Roddy Ricch has, and has the vocal range that Roddy Ricch has. So how the fuck can't you be rooting for this guy's comeback? He's literally the future of the hip-hop sound right now.
It's a very interesting situation with Roddy. Absolutely. I mean, Live Life Fast sounded uninspired, but going back to what you were saying about taking the couple of years off, I could understand that approach too, because for a lot of artists, what they'll do is that they'll pump out multiple records and they'll be on a hot run, and then boom, because either you run out of inspiration, you run out of gas, situation changes, you need to stop, and you need to stop producing, and you need to kind of get that creative flow going again. You need to observe everything and go through life's experiences. So I don't think it's a bad play, but I think what's cool about Roddy is that he's hungry, man. The guy's young. He has so much material. He has so much time. So it was a very smart move on his part to, announce that he was coming back and that he would be stronger than ever. So yes, I think Roddy Ricch will be making a comeback this year. But let's go on to Lil Uzi Vert, because another interesting case right here. I feel as if when you look at 2016 and 2017, the hype around Lil Uzi was peak, dude. There was everyone bumping that, let's say songs like, I don't know, EXO Tour Life in 2017, or, songs like Money Longer. There was just so many different records that were hitting for him. And after Eternal Atake, this slow decline started happening. It was just sort of a thing where, yes, people were receptive to Eternal Atake, but again, a polarizing record. There's people that absolutely love it, or there's people that absolutely hate it. But people do agree that it is, weaker within his catalog. He said he didn't like it himself. He said he only keeps, I would say, what, like 2 songs out of,
Out of 32 songs.
Out of the 32 songs that are on there, then that's a problem. Because then you're admitting to your fan base that...
It's not a problem. I like that he's self-aware about it. Not many artists will do that.
It's not a problem for him. It's a problem for the music. The problem lies within the listening experience, because you've just said that your album doesn't really feel like a good listen. So what do you think he does? Because even at that, Demon High didn't do too well. I mean, not many people are talking about that single. Kind of dropped at an awkward time. The sound around it was kind of weird. He's going into a different phase. So, man, what's going on with Uzi, bro? Especially that we've been listening for so long, man. We've been able to see this guy's career go through it, you know?
Yeah, it's definitely tough. And, like, especially, you know, after Demon High and after what I've been hearing in terms of snippets at, like, these shows and, like, the Rolling Loud performance where he was previewing these new songs, I'm getting this feeling that right now where Uzi is in his career is he's at a crossroads stylistically. I feel like he does not know which sound he should be carrying out, and we saw that on a song like Demon High, where it kind of had this pop vibe to it, but it also sounded very kid-friendly. Like, I feel like Uzi is trying to recapture the youth, because that's the demographic that he really had on lock back in 2016 and 2017. But what's really interesting about Uzi and all the new music that he's working on right now is that he's experimenting a lot, which could be a good thing or a bad thing. Because if you look at what he did on the new Nigo album, he's rapping over a drill beat. If you look at the songs he's been previewing at shows, he's rapping over rage beats and EDM style stuff. If you look at, you know, Demon High, that's a sound that he's never tackled before. So I'm scared he's going to lose his identity as an artist and not really know which sound to go after, and not, you know, give us a cohesive listen, you know, as an effect of that. But at the end of the day, the Pink Tape is coming soon. We know what Uzi does on mixtapes, and I feel like he'll end up finding the direction that he wants to go in. And he's just one of the most animated rappers in the game right now, and he has so many characteristics that are strong, but he's missing the emo/emotional type songs like we got on Feelings Mutual or EXO Tour Life, where, you know, there's actual storytelling. I feel like there's real meaning missing in Uzi's music, but nonetheless, I think he'll have a comeback. Let me know in the comments if you guys think Uzi's going to have a comeback, because it's a very big discussion. But let's now go on to Bobby Shmurda. And this is very interesting because, of course, you know, after all the hype that he had built in 2014, he went to jail for 7 years. And once he came out of jail in February of 2021, everybody, and I mean the entire hip-hop community, was waiting for that first day out song, but it never came. I mean, it came, but it came 7 months late, which to me is, you know, it ended up being a case where Bobby killed his own hype in a way. And I feel like he waited too long, and then the single wasn't that strong, and then he kept releasing singles such as Shmoney with Rowdy Rebel and Quavo. That didn't really hit. He put out Splash, Cartier Lens. Nothing's really been sticking, but to his credit, there's no album out yet. So it's kind of hard to judge and to say, is he fallen off or will he have a comeback? So what's your whole take on this? Because I think what he should do is maybe make some drill music, call up Jalil Beats, see what he's up to. I mean, he just needs to maybe capture that momentum that he had going almost a decade ago.
It's a hard situation with Bobby, because listen, he was locked up for 7 years. Maybe he's just enjoying life right now. Maybe the whole plan when he had gotten out of jail was not to release music.
He fumbled the bag doing that, in my opinion.
I mean, listen, you could fumble the bag, but like, that's a hard situation to be in, bro.
It is.
Like, you don't know what that guy's going through, and maybe he needed to take time off of music to be able to spend time with family, to start reliving experiences.
I'm not saying as a personal decision.
No.
I'm saying as a career choice. I think he should have released the record earlier.
He should have released the first day out record, but I could understand why he didn't, because there's a lot of different things that go into it. Plus, there's labels involved. You know, there's different artists involved. There's different things that go into it. So I don't discredit him for, you know, releasing that much stuff after. The only thing I do have to say I'm not a fan of are those singles that ended up dropping, because in comparison to what was going on in 2014, sounds nothing like it. And of course, you know, it's a different time. It's a different industry. It's a different hype. But what Bobby was so good at in 2014 was creating that hype. He was literally the wave. There was everyone that was rooting for Bobby Shmurda, because every single song that he released, and even, you know, Shmurda She Wrote, was fantastic. It was impeccable. It was this new, fresh sound that the New York market never heard before. So even looking at where drill's at right now, I mean, your biggest player is probably, Fabio Foreign at the moment, especially with all the cosigns. The hype around Bible coming out. There's a lot of things that go into it. So I don't know. I don't think he's going to have a comeback this year. I don't think Bobby Shmurda is coming back with an album in 2022, but hopefully one day we will be getting that album, and maybe it ends up happening this year. But all right, let's end off this list with someone that's very polarizing within the hip-hop community, and that is Logic, because after No Pressure, people were really convinced on Logic's catalog. Like, there was this sort of saving grace within all of the previous projects that he released that, sort of felt unfinished, that felt like they were uninspired, that they were too pop-oriented, and going to No Pressure was a beautiful direction. Then he releases, Bobby Tarantino 3 as, under the moniker Logic. Obviously not the thing that he had done, on Dat Piff. So why do you think he needs a comeback now, especially with vinyl days? Because I've been listening to the snippets. They sound absolutely fucking immaculate. It sounds like he's rapping again. Where do you think Logic takes his career? And, do you think he's going to get back to that peak form that we saw in 2020?
Yeah, listen, I love No Pressure, and I hail it as one of Logic's best albums in his entire, discography. But there was that whole retirement album narrative next to it and attached to it, and it kind of cheapened the album for me a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, because that retirement, lasted less than a year. I mean, when Jay-Z did it, at least we hadn't heard from him in like 3 years when he came back with Kingdom Come. But in the Logic situation, he comes back and he drops Bobby Tarantino 3, and it has songs like Stupid Skid on there. It has Vaccine, and right away that it's probably the worst music he's ever put out, and that there's no quality control within it. And you could tell that he didn't put any effort into it. He kind of gave no fucks. And a reason for that is because he put it out to fulfill his contract obligation to Def Jam. And he clearly states that in the actual project. But to me, it's kind of a bit insulting to the fans that you're giving them material that you're not even proud of. But now going into 2022, I feel like he will have that comeback because he's working on Vinyl Days, and all the snippets that he's been previewing sound fantastic. And he said that he's going to drop it as soon as the sample's clear, and it sounds like he's bringing in some old school boom bap beats, some old RZA style production. It sounds fantastic, and it's just good to hear that Logic is in good form again, because he's had a lot of hits in his catalog, but also a lot of misses. But to know that he's creatively in a good headspace, I think that's really a positive sign for his fan base. But listen, guys, throughout all these albums that are slated to come out, there's a possibility that they hit, there's a possibility that they don't. But let us know down in the comments if you think they will be having a comeback in 2022, if these artists do end up dropping in 2022. And for all of these artists, we will be keeping you guys updated if they do drop albums. We're going to be doing album reviews and coverage on their material. So hit that subscribe button if you have not already. And if you guys actually want to access our live album reactions, they're available on our Patreon plan for the reaction tier. Check out the link in the description. It's always an awesome time as we get to bump albums with our community. So thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.